Good morning. You know, Denny's introduced the Grand Slam breakfast in 1977 in Atlanta to commemorate Hank Aaron's acceptance in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And it became a signature item on all of their 23 restaurants in Atlanta. And it was so well accepted there that people who would have one there and go somewhere else would say, well, where's your Grand Slam? And so it spread all over the U.S. and became their #1 breakfast item. It was bigger than most breakfasts. It had 2 meats, 2 eggs, 3 5-inch pancakes, hash browns, and close to 1,000 calories. And about 6 months ago, I was at the doctor's office, and the first thing was step on the scales, and I weighed 251. It's the most I had ever weighed in my life. And I decided right there on the spot I was going to take some of that weight off. All I did was sit around and watch reruns of Judy on TV and things like that. Got very little exercise, but I was still eating like I was riding a bicycle 30 or 40 miles for recreation. And so I cut back on my diets, and one of the things that I did was I quit having the Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's, and when I would cook my own breakfast, I made what I called my Slim Slam breakfast. That's what I'm going to make this morning. Well, I'm going to start off with my hash browns. These are actually French fries that we've gotten with hamburgers and things like that, and we didn't eat them all, so I just simply chopped them up into about 1/2-inch pieces and threw them in the freezer. And start out with those. Well, these are browning on the bottom. I'm going to toss my sausage in there on top to warm. That's a pre-cooked from Jimmy Dean. Normally had a 2-ounce sausage. That's a 1 1/4 ounce sausage there. Well, the hash browns are brown and the sausage is hot, so take those up on the plate. And my 1 egg. And throw an ice cube in there with it. Check my egg here. Oh yeah, perfect. I wanted an over easy egg. right there. hot cakes here, and they are hot, and that goes to the table. Get a package of syrup there to go with them. And there's my Slim Slam breakfast, and it's about, best I can figure, about 440 calories, which is way less than half of what the regular Grand Slam runs from Denny's. And they even have a Super Slam, which has 3 pieces of meat, 5 pancakes, 3 eggs, and who knows how many calories. Get some salt and pepper on my egg. And some syrup on the pancakes. That's a good breakfast. Bite of sausage here. And these hash browns they're even better than they were when they were French fries. Quite often we get a McDonald's special. It's a burger with fries for $2.29, something like that. And we very seldom ever eat, but just a few of the fries are kind of limp and whatnot when we get them. So I cut them into short pieces and throw them in a bag and in the freezer, and turn them into hash browns. And they're good. A lot better than when they were French fries. So now it's story time. I'll tell you another war story. It's a short one about when I was in Korea. Well, this is a war story of sorts because it happened during the war, and I call it when we took down Mount 301. The reason we knew it was 301 because it had a brass plaque on top of it with that elevation as the height of the top of it. Back in the 20s, the U.S. Geodetic Survey went around the world and marked the highest points of land with these brass plates with the altitude, with the location and a serial number and the elevation of it stamped in them. And while I never saw that one, there were people who had climbed up on it and said that that marker was there. In the battles, the troops usually named hills. The Marines seemed to go for food. They had pork chop and they had pancake and I don't know the rest of them that they had names for the mountains when they'd conquer them. But anyway, this one was about a half mile off the base on the road leading from the base to Pusan. And about 3/4 of a mile on down the road from it was a village. And the only thing we knew about it, it had two entrances to tunnels down at ground level, but they both were blocked with metal gates welded in place. And the story was it was an ammunition storage for the Japanese. The Japanese claimed Korea as part of their country from 1900 on and occupied it, and in fact they built that original field where we were. And we really wanted to get rid of the thing because if it had ammunition or something stored in it, it did pose a danger. Also, they wanted the rock to use in the repair of the runways. So they called me in one day and told me to survey that and see what it was and see what would be involved in getting rid of it. Well, I got a hold of our demolitions guy there that took care of exploding things that had to be blown up, and most of his work was involved in rock quarries where they had rock too big to handle otherwise, and he'd go in and set dynamite on it and bust it up to where they could handle it. He and I went over there and looked it over, and I got a welder to come down there and cut the bolts off holding the wrought iron barred gate in place, and so we could get in to see what was in there. This picture of me looking in there for the first time after the gate had been removed. And the noticeable thing, the opening was only about 5 foot tall. I guess it was styled to fit the size of the Japanese that were in charge of it. But the demolitions guy and I stepped inside, and he took one whiff, and he said, "I smell nitroglycerin," and said, "We want to be very careful in this place." Well, we searched on in it for just a short distance and came to rooms off this hall, and they had stacks of boxes of American-made dynamite in them. And it had been there so long that it started to weep, and the liquid nitroglycerin was leaking out of the bottom of the boxes and onto the floor. And it has kind of a sickly sweet smell, and something else we found out, if you breathe it about 20 or 30 minutes, it gives you a roaring headache. And he says, I wouldn't move one of those boxes for anything. He says it's highly unstable now. So we got back with the commanding officer and executives, and they said, well, what would be involved in taking it out? And he said, well, I can blow it up if you wanted me to. And they said, well, how big an explosion would it be? And he says, I have no idea because we don't know how much dynamite is in there. But it was decided that that would be the way to handle it. So they warned the Korean village down the road there that is going to be exploded on a certain date, and they might want to lay their houses down if they could, and we would take steps to protect the base there. Got it ready, and he set his primer cord and timer and all that, and started, and everybody on our base went across the runway to the other side about a half-mile away. And when that went off, it was a real it was a real boomer, and it threw rocks all the way to us, and knocked down some tents and knocked down a building or two, and but it was no longer there, but it was down into a shape that you could scoop it up and load it on trucks and take it to the rock crusher. Here's another picture of it from the base, taken. If you look through the struts of the airplane in the picture there, you can see the mountain behind it there, and that's how close it was. But that's my story about taking down Mount 301. So that's my story and my recipe for the day, and thanks for watching, and God bless America, and God bless Texas, because where else would you find a state with something like this in it? Bye.